So I'm going to bring Charlene on. There we go. Hey, Charlene. I
Hi,
am
how are
so
you?
excited that you're here today. Oh my gosh, look at this. The chat is alive with, oh, fellow beloved misfit. I love that. I love that. And you use that word in describing you. You use that word, the brand misfit. And that just to me is, well, first of all, it says a hell of a lot about branding.
Yes.
It really does. And it gets to that whole differentiation thing and all of that. And so I have been really, really excited about having you on because you just have, you have this style to you. There's this dynamic factor to everything that you do. So I am so excited about having you on and talking about how to become visible, how to make our brand visible in this tech-centric world. Because if there's one thing that we heard from everybody yesterday, it was how the pandemic had affected so many of us, who are in this world. So with that, I would just love to, first of all, introduce you because you are, if I were going to say anything, you are the queen of brand. So I've been so looking forward to hearing from you. And at the end, we'll talk a little bit more. But please, let's go ahead and jump into what you have
I
to
do
present,
that. I
Charlie.
definitely would like to say thank you. And I'm excited about our conversation today. For me, a lot of it was definitely based on my growing because, with between tech, I've been a techie for over 23 years.
Okay.
And and learning all the things that changes, so do how we present ourselves and how we see ourselves a lot. So I always wanted to make sure that no matter what, people really understood that it's okay to do things differently. But what I always realized was so many people didn't understand why certain provisions were put in place. So that's where I come in. I share the reasons why, but then say, you know what, it's okay if you do it differently. But it's always great to know why you're doing it differently.
Oh,
Not
good
just
point.
taking those, right? Not just taking everyone else's solutions and now trying to fit them in to suit you. So that's
Yeah.
always my thing.
And when anytime you want to think about that, just think about politicians.
Hmm.
Because that's what we're seeing now, and what we always see during pre-election times is everybody deciding to trying to promote their message. Sometimes that message isn't really clear.
Absolutely.
And so let me go ahead. I'm going to add your slides, and I'm just going to sit here and learn because I really have so looked forward to this.
So I chose this title of Stepping Out of the Shadows because that's what I had to do as a solopreneur, as a misfit entrepreneur. I had to figure out my way in the world of business. I know I wasn't raised to run a business. So I had to learn all the ins and outs, but then also get comfortable being in the front because it's
Mm,
easy for us to hide behind a logo. We hear about branding, we get nervous.
yeah.
And then, of course, we don't know how to speak to our people. So I wanted to help others step out of those shadows of following everyone else and also
Mhm.
stepping out of the shadows of being uncomfortable. So, with that, I want us to learn how we can dominate our brand visibility and take it under our own control, but still embrace the tech centric world that we're living in. And a lot of that, I want us to really get into understanding what is a misfit entrepreneur,
Mhm.
what is it that we can do to get more comfortable with tech. And something that I've learned, a lot of us suffer from tech hurt, and that leads into
Ah,
tech trauma. So what it is, and we'll go into it a little more during the presentation,
I
it's
love
really
this.
it's really something that holds us all back. A lot of us, especially when we're in
Mm.
business, even when we're in a career, we're held back once we hear someone mentions, oh, you're going to learn something new. We have new
Ah,
software coming in. You have something different happening. And it almost throws us off our game. And I don't want us to feel that way. So we're going to get into a lot of that
oh, that's
today.
great.
So, one thing I definitely wanted to cover is why should we even care about being comfortable with technology, embracing who we really are? And as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, even people in a career where you're climbing that corporate ladder, you want to stand out. You want to feel different and
Mhm.
be comfortable with it. So, that's why I started to really speak to those misfit entrepreneurs. And when you hear misfit, you're thinking, you might think something bad. You might think
Yeah.
someone is not following the rules, but that's not always a bad thing. It's really someone who's ready to do something different, to make a change.
Mm.
And isn't that a lot of times what we're always saying to each other? We should embrace differences. You should embrace
Right.
change.
Hmm.
So, of course, as an entrepreneur, you want to embrace that. You want to know what is out there, what can you do, but then, of course, how to put your own spin on it. That's
Yeah,
really what makes us stand out differently, right?
right. Absolutely.
So, of course, I want us to make sure that our key takeaways is to understand the techniques of embracing it and harnessing how we are unique, and then how to overcome and leverage technology. So, definitely, I want us to lead when we use technology and not allow technology to lead us.
Mm.
And for me, being a Mr. Entrepreneur means that we can embrace our misfit energy. And that's what I call
Oh, I love
when you
that.
when you feel like, I think differently, I speak differently, I act differently, that's part of your misfit energy. That's part of who you are. So I want us to embrace it, understand it, and don't apologize for it anymore.
Yeah.
This is no longer the time to apologize.
Oh, I
And
love this. I absolutely love this.
And of course, stepping out of the shadows of conformity. We're always being told to not stick out, follow rules, don't rock the boat. But then when you're transitioning into owning a business or actually trying to step into the roles of
Mhm.
executive positions, you have to stand out at that point because now you become a leader. And for you to do that, you have to be able to understand where the conformities are coming from, where are these rules
Mm.
coming from, but then learn where to break the rules or where to bend them. And then allow others around you to feel comfortable if they are also able to break certain standards and live their own lives visibly and with fun. So that's where we're going to step out of
I
that
love
and
this.
embrace
Oh,
how we are unique.
yes, yes, yes.
Right? So, with all of that, why blend in when we were born to stand out? And that's my whole key. And I had to learn that. I'm 46 and
Oh, you're an old lady.
it took me a long time to realize that I should be heard. And when I'm being heard, I should have something really, really good to say. But not that it's profound in a sense, but that it's something that I can stand on and I believe in wholeheartedly. So even when someone questions me, I shouldn't see it as a bad thing. Challenge is good. That's what helps
Hmm.
us grow. So, me being unique in it, I want to be able to say, this is why I believe in it. And yes, we're going to be different, and that's okay. And not allow someone else to talk me out of it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
we talked a little bit about tech hurt, and tech hurt is always something that holds us back because now we are shunning away from technology. We're telling ourselves that we can't learn it. And a lot of
Hmm.
times when I find people, especially clients, who tell me, you know what, I'm not tech savvy, I'm not a techie. And I was like, you don't have to be. You just
Right.
have to understand the concepts of it and then allow yourself to understand, okay, I have a process. I know that there's a certain way I like to work. Is there
Hmm.
some technology or some type of modernized way that I can do the same thing, but with less stress on my brain, less stress on my mental, my emotions?
Yeah.
and And as a techie, I realized that even in corporate, when I would speak to those who call themselves non techies, it wasn't always a battle of they didn't want to do it. They truly didn't understand how it benefited what they were doing now. Or
Mm-hmm.
they would be promised the moon and the rainbows. And a lot of times people would fall short. So they've had almost like a feeling of they were burnt, and
Mm-hmm.
they were jaded. They were just like, you know what, I can't believe on what you're saying to me. And I realized, like, okay, it's not that you don't want to, you're really not sure if you can trust the next person who is promising you the moon and the stars. So now it's about giving you that reality of what truly
Mm-hmm.
done through technology. Technology is not our savior, but we should look at technology as an ultimate tool that we can truly use. But we first have to have clarity, and we have to understand what it is that we need to have done, and what
Mm-hmm.
can technology truly at this point in time help us do. Because yes, anything can happen in the future, but now we need to work with today.
Yep,
And we need to set
exactly.
ourselves up for the future, right?
Exactly. Yes. And there are so many new developments today. I mean, just with artificial intelligence, everything's being
Absolutely.
rethought.
Absolutely. And then that's where confusion and you're feeling overwhelmed because so
Mm-hmm.
much is being thrown at us, even with AI, chat GTP, mid journey image. Everybody's like, okay, wait a minute, what? And imagine if you're a solopreneur, you're thinking of, okay, I have to run the day to day. I have to learn the new things that are happening. I have to get
Mm-hmm.
a process together. I have to hire people. I've never done most of this stuff. Like, so it's an overwhelmed feeling. And then of course, when you have someone who feels like, you know what, I can't explain it to you anymore, and you feel
Yeah.
abandoned, right? And
Oh,
then you
yes.
also start to feel embarrassed, like, okay, is it me? Am I not getting it? And there should be none of this going on. It should just be an understanding of when you're training people, when you're speaking to people about new things, you have to now start to gauge each other. And sometimes we're not perceptive on our emotions, and especially the emotions of those who speak to us. So taking the time to listen, slow things down a little bit, allows people to start to open up so they can start overcoming that tech hurt. And the longer you hold on to those tech hurts, it starts to transition and manifest into tech trauma. So then
I
that at
saw
that point
that.
you just shut down.
That just jumped off the page to me, tech trauma, because I certainly have been there. I think all of
Mhm.
us have been there. And it's, I don't know if you can get yeah, post traumatic stress, PTSD. I don't know if you can get that from tech trauma, but I suspect you may be able
I
to.
believe so. I believe so because it's just that constant letting down and constant embarrassment
Yeah.
and constant feeling of abandonment. So then at that point, most people give up and
Yes.
they insist on manual, or they insist on taking control of everything instead of automating or just giving it to someone
Hmm.
else, and trusting that they can level up and do better and things like that. So yeah, it does happen for sure.
And I think that happens a lot with us who are very small business owners, coaches,
Hmm.
consultants. We may have just one virtual assistant, and that's the only person we work with, or have, a couple of people in our group, but we don't generally have, 15 or 20 people in our organization. So a
Exactly.
lot of this, I think, becomes so, I'm just going to be quiet because I'm seeing where you're going with this and I'm loving it. So zip.
Oh yeah, I love the conversational. So trust me, I'm here for it. And then of course, I want us to use tech as a tool. It's a powerful tool that we can use. So as we're transforming that tech hurt, we're going to start doing tech empowerment and start to level up on how we use technology. And then we can really start to envision our businesses growing through the use of technology. And then it's really about using the right tech, right? So it's not about using all of them. It's just using the right ones that fits you, and fits where your journey should be going. And a lot of times we don't take the time to really evaluate what our case would be like. So
Mhm.
I want to use Mosaic Nation Inc. and some of the members. One of the founders is here right now,
Oh,
Leslie George.
great. Oh my, hi Leslie. Yes, I see you here.
Yes,
Excited to hear from the Misfit. I love it. But
and
I think it's so telling that people gravitate towards Misfit because I think we all have felt like misfits. So,
exactly.
and misfit has a negative connotation a lot of times. And what you're telling us is that maybe misfit is what we want to be.
Absolutely. And not only is that what we want to be, secretly, that's what a lot of people want to be.
Well, yeah.
So now let's just do it in the open. Let's just do it knowing that we are being misfits on purpose and not that someone else is giving us that title. Because when someone else gives it to you, they're not giving it to you out of love,
Well,
more
yeah.
likely.
And,
So,
remembering my family counseling courses, if somebody gives you something, you actually have to accept it before
mhm,
you do that. So just
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So with Mosaic Nation, there's a lot of women in this organization that are not always feeling like they're tech savvy. But what I love about them is that they knew that they wanted to get to another level and they knew technology would be part of that journey, but they
Mhm.
weren't sure how it was. And they also had many that were suffering from that tech hurt and a little bit of that tech trauma feeling. So once they started to really educate themselves on, okay, what is it that we need? What is our ultimate goal in our business, in our organization, and how do we want to serve our community? And with that, what tech can help us do that? So they definitely started to jump into Clubhouse. Clubhouse is one of the
Yeah.
social media audio only apps.
Mhm.
And they started doing daily rooms in there. They have a university that they do bi monthly. And they also have virtual meetups. So they embrace tech at a time when a lot of people were forced to embrace tech,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
they did it with intention. And that's what I love about this case is that
Mhm.
not only was it intentional, they knew that they have an ultimate purpose. So
Mhm.
nothing was going to stop that growth. Nothing was going to stop where they knew they needed to be. They knew people, other women needed them. They needed that safe space, that protected space, and they were ready to step up and figure out how can we provide that. And with all of that, they started to develop, okay, how can we do something new, something different, or take a new spin on what's already happening? So, developing
Mhm.
speakers, being in person for social events, and of course, educational events. All of these things are part of what they ultimately want to do. So the way they go about it, that's a whole different conversation of, okay, now what's going to fit where we need to be.
Well, we're just going to have you back to tell us about that. That's the
Oh,
answer.
definitely. I cannot wait for that to unfold. Yes, Leslie, you are definitely a case study. So I cannot wait. And then, so as we're doing this, we want to set up a tech journey that will fit us, that will allow us to be comfortable. And like I said, you don't have to do every single thing that comes out new, but it's good to just, keep an ear out, see what's happening. And then if you can start bringing people into your organization, into your business, that will help you guide you along the way to say, oh, okay,
Mhm.
I can test this out for you. I can give you feedback on what it's doing. And then we have a whole conversation about, is this where you want it to go? If not, we can move on. If it is, then we can
Mhm.
dive deeper, right?
Mhm.
So part of that is, I always say there's a 5-step action plan when you want to overcome the tech hurt. You want to definitely understand, what is your purpose in your business? What is your purpose in your passion? Why are you so passionate about doing anything that you're accomplishing?
Mhm.
And then you want to have a ability to gain clarity on, who are you? That's where the misfit and embracing who you are as a misfit
Mhm.
energy comes in. Understand who you are. And then that way, when you're having those challenges and those debates, those conversations, you
Mhm.
can proudly say, no, this is why I'm doing this. This is why
Yeah.
I stand on these principles. And then,
And that's where that bold piece too, embracing your brand. And what
exactly.
I always focus on, at that point is, it's, well, two things. One is, and I know you know this too, people don't buy from us because we're the best one out there. They buy
Exactly.
from us because we're different, and the
Absolutely.
way that we're different appeals to them. And what I love about this is that so much of what you're talking here, understanding your purpose, gaining clarity on who you are, that is all a huge part of branding.
Yeah.
And then the strategy comes out of that. So I'm going to be quiet now and let you continue, but I made that observation, so I decided to pop in.
Yes, definitely. Because when we're branding, that's part of the brand. The part of the brand is
Mhm.
understanding what is the purpose of you and what is the purpose leading into your business. Because some people mix up and think, oh, me being here, that's my purpose. Like, no,
Yeah.
you have to have an ultimate reason of why you get up in the morning. Why, if there was that struggle and that roadblock, what would entice you and empower you to go beyond that roadblock, to say, you know what, no matter what, I'm not going to allow this to defeat my ultimate goal, my dream, my
I
passion.
love that. Hmm.
Right? So that's where branding comes in. But even with branding, there's still that deeper level of layers that people still never really even touch. They
Right.
just always stay on the surface of colors and fonts and maybe a mission statement or two. So then that's it. But
Yeah.
it's so much deeper than that.
Hmm.
So once you get all of that clarity, now you can start to develop a strategy, not only on how to use technology, but what is your brand going to do? How are you going to, I would say, move in these internet streets of when
Oh,
people
yeah.
see you, they know it's you. They recognize how you speak to them. They recognize how you show up for them. How are you going to develop this game plan ultimately? So no matter what it is that you're doing, especially in integrating technology, it's always going to feel like it's seamless for you and your team. That's something
Mhm.
else. So when we're infusing the best technology that we can find for our business, you also want to make sure that your team is also able to deal with that technology. They're
Mhm.
getting enough training. And it's not always that they're tech savvy, it's really training. Even
Mhm.
us techies, we have to learn it, we have to train
Right.
on it. So it's about that training. And then once people are passionate about who you are, what your mission and your goals are, they're going to dig deep and say, okay, we know the strategy. Let's get to learning. Let's make sure this is working. And
Mhm.
then, of course, once all of that is there, you can start auditing what your processes are and how the technology is addressing that process, or is it enhancing it? Are you adding to it where you don't need to? Do you need to swap out the technology? That's where the audit process comes in.
And I have a question about that
Mhm.
I'm just going to
Yes.
throw out here. Yesterday we touched on this a little bit too. There are a lot. Well, there's so much technology out there. You can easily get overwhelmed with just all the different possibilities.
Yes.
Um, there are a number of platforms that are kind of all purpose. You can house your course there, you can do your email, you can have your landing pages. And I'm just kind of wondering what your take might be on that, or whether you think that's something that people should consider.
Me personally, I've never been an all in one person, only because no matter what the platform is, they started out perfecting something.
Mm,
One thing more than likely. If it's marketing, if it's blogging, if it's SEO, there's something that that platform was known as, and they made that their niche. They
mm,
made that their thing. So a lot of these all-in-ones came to be because folks this wanted this hey, I want to have everything in one location and I just pay one bill. And
mhm,
that's okay, but logically that doesn't always work. And why doesn't it always work? It's because if if hosting a website, meaning holding my files, making sure I'm always up on online, making sure hackers don't get into my files,
yeah,
if
yeah.
that's not your thing, if that's not where you're really spending your time and you're investing your money as a company, if that's not what you're going to do, then more than likely you're going to allow things to slip through. You're not always going to be on top of it. If security is your thing, then I know you're always looking out for the latest hacks. You're always making sure that something
Mhm.
is up to date. So it's very key to make sure that when you're looking into these all in one platforms, find out what was their main thing. What was the thing that they perfected? Because more than likely, they're going to always stay on top of that first, and
Yeah.
everything else will fall into line. And the reason why I say this is because we see it all the time when companies start to buy other companies and they start to merge. Sooner or later, they start to go back in it. They do their own audits within their companies, and it's like, well, is this really where we want to spend the next 10 years,
Mhm.
5 years of investments? Or if money starts to get tight in this organization, as big as they may feel, they start to dwindle down and say, okay, we can sell this off, we can outsource this. So you really want to make sure that whatever they would be ready to get rid of, is this something that would impact you as a company?
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So for me, I rather deal with companies that if that's your thing, let me deal with you, you handle this. And then
Yeah.
another organization, if you're great with domain names and you can get me up and running in no time, I'm going to stick with you. If you're great with security, I'm going to stick with you, and I'm going to bring you guys together. So now the trick of it is, what can really be interconnected, what can
That's what I was
infuse each other properly. That's where I start to look at. It's like, okay, are these companies starting to talk to each other, and are they thinking outside that, oh, people want to communicate, they want to
saying.
connect here, they want to make it seamless? We can do that, because larger organizations are not always doing all in ones. So we have to start to
Mhm.
think that way. I think a lot of us are, I don't want to say penny pinching, but we're looking at the, oh, you know what, financially I can't afford to be everywhere. So I want
Mhm.
one place to I can just do that. And the finance becomes the first thing, and the performance becomes the last thing. And
Okay.
I don't want performance to suffer, because as we start to build our brands and our businesses, we really want performance to start to take that center stage, and then be the center of everything else that we come into play.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely I'm not totally against all at once, but I want people to go into it with a realistic idea, and not just think that, oh, this is the way of the world and this is what's going on. Absolutely not. A lot of times, if yes, companies will do it in-house, but even in-house, behind the scenes, a lot of techies will tell you they are using multiple tools to
Mhm.
infuse them to see what can work and what doesn't, and make it look and feel seamless, but on the back end it's really not.
Wow. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
and any of us who have at one time or another used any of these all-in-ones know that things can change pretty quickly. And the
Oh, yeah.
reason that you went with it may not be the reason you want to stay with it.
And that's part of the tech journey, and auditing what's going on in your business. Is
Yeah.
this even still relevant for you? Is this not relevant? Is this a good platform anymore? And that's where you really can make the difference of, is your business going to really grow and elevate, or is your business going to feel and stay stagnant?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I just wanted to make sure that we get into wrapping this part of it up,
Sure.
and say that regardless of what you're doing, you want to be comfortable in not only who you are, but what your ultimate goal is. So that ultimate goal will help to define what type of technology you start to look for, because the goal is built into your business process. A lot of times we try to
Mm.
separate the two. Your brand and your business should be working together, and the technology should be infused to elevate what your goals are and help you reach those goals effortlessly. And
Yeah.
that's the goal. And of course, I have my special offers, but you guys will get that
Yeah.
in your packets.
Yes, yes. I'm going to make sure that everyone gets it. But I did want to ask you about that because it's a pretty cool gift. So,
Thank
can
you.
I get you to talk about it for a second?
Yes, I would. I just wanted to have something that allows people to have a guide that they can go through it themselves, and then see the step by step of the explanations of why
Hmm.
these different sections are so important. And then, of course, I gave an added checklist to it. And if anyone is interested, they can join me in my Misfit Squad community, and we can go
Oh,
into it even more because that's where I was doing more. I'll be doing more trainings there. I'm able to have actual one-on-ones and group conversations and events in that community. So that's definitely what I was working on, and I'm super excited because I'll also be doing like a private podcast, so they
oh,
can get
that's
even
cool.
more conversations with me. Yeah.
That's very cool. I don't have the link to that, but I'm sure you're going to get it to me shortly, and I can
Yes.
give that to people because we will send this out to all of you afterwards. Yes, and I wanted to open it up right now because we still have some time, and see if we have any questions. Because, and I'm going to take this down so we can
Yes.
look at your pretty face there. I would really like to hear, if anyone else has questions about this. But one of the things that you mentioned really, really struck me, and that
Mhm.
was when you were talking about, um, you know, stepping into, owning who you are, and that may not be conventional. That may not be that. Well, we all know that, for instance, in how we define beauty, that
Right.
can be very much a cultural standard, and not what any of us believe in. But one of the things that you mentioned that I think is so powerful is that we need to understand who we are in order un, to really promote ourselves. But also, you mentioned values and purpose and all of that, and that to me is something that's so important, because I tell my clients, you're the same person. You show up in different places, but you bring the same person with you. And I want people to be committed to who they are, committed to their own values, and understand where they draw the line. And you said, be able to explain that. So I wondered if you could just talk about that a little bit more.
Yes, because that's where the brand Misfit came, and it was born out of that, was because I used to feel like I couldn't really explain to people why I was so passionate about web design and development, and why I was
Mhm.
so passionate about people knowing the steps. Because a lot
Mhm.
of times there was that misconception that, hey, you hire a web developer and you just tell them your dreams and then you walk away, and then you come
Yeah,
back and boop, in
there
24
it
hours, the website is up. And I was like, no.
is. Yeah.
And it was to the point that it led me into frustration. And I wasn't sure why. And I didn't want it to be that I was angry with clients, or I was angry with I guess the industry, but I just didn't understand why people just had that misconception. And that's when I realized, especially during the pandemic, that I needed to do more of the education part,
Mhm.
especially from a techie standpoint, because I saw a lot of people teaching how to, I guess I would say, how to start a WordPress or how to start a website, but
Mhm.
they never got into the conversation of understanding who you were first, and then start to dive into what the website would do for you, instead
Uh,
of assuming that once you have a website up, you just walk away and boof, you just have all this money and magic. And I was like, no, because people still
my
don't know
first
you.
one certainly didn't do that. I can tell you that. And
So
I kept wondering what was wrong with the designer, rather than, oh, maybe I'm not being clear.
right. And then a lot of times the designers aren't even clear,
Right.
because I knew for me, I started to reevaluate, how was I having my meetings? How was I speaking to my clients, my audience?
Mm.
And they would get excited, but once it was like, okay, so let's start getting the content together. Let's start doing this. I was excited, but they weren't,
They
because
were.
then they they were like, "Oh, I gotta do the work." I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So a lot of that was, oh, okay, now I'm seeing. And with the emergence of Clubhouse, I would go into different rooms and I would listen. And I was like, okay, I see a huge discrepancy going on right now
Mhm.
where here people were freely asking, oh, well, I thought that's what you did. I thought that. And I was like, well, no.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and it was like this expectation of, oh, you do everything. You cover copy, you do images, you do all of that. And I was like,
And
we
wouldn't that be
could.
great?
Yeah, it would be great, but especially for the expectations of, hey, it can be a lot of times people would say, for $99, I'll get your website up in 2 days.
Oh, yeah.
But then it would be like, what kind of website? So for me, I started asking those type of questions, and I've always been a person to ask questions. So it was like, okay, now I got to ask questions of my industry. What are we promising
Mhm.
people that is allowing them to be almost disillusioned of what they're supposed to get? What should they expect?
Mhm.
So having those real conversations with myself allowed me to have the real conversations with others. And even for me, I realized I was not really comfortable because I didn't think the same way as other web developers and designers.
Mhm.
I wanted to know more about your business. I needed to know more. And I wanted to see you more excited about your website than me.
Yeah.
So a lot of that was, okay, I need to step back and scale back, because if I'm get ready to give my all and they're not ready to do half of that, then there's a
Yeah.
disconnect. So that's when I just shifted and went into educating and teaching and doing that part, because I didn't think I was a good teacher. And then,
Well,
of
I
course,
beg to differ here, Charlene.
and the more I did it, the more comfortable, yes, definitely people were like, okay, now we understand. So that's when I knew my mission was there. It was still to develop websites. I still love that. That's still a
Mhm.
passion for me. But now I really needed to dive into the educational part of it, which I love.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, you're certainly good at it. That's for sure.
Thank you.
And I wanted to start because we're going to be winding up. But here's my question. Because I work with a lot of coaches and people who probably don't have that technical ability. And I know I didn't. And the first time I built it or had someone build a website, somebody just found it recently. And they said, well, if you were an attorney, this really works, because it looks like an attorney's site. Well, and I looked at it, and yes, it did look like an attorney's site. And I didn't understand how important it was to put forth my own personality when I was doing it, to kind of step into that, because I think everything around us says, don't cause, disruption, don't attract the wrong kind of attention, just
Right.
it, and I hate to put it this way, but just be a good girl and
Yes,
everything will be fine, and we know that, good girls need to define themselves too. and and
absolutely.
and we need to know exactly who we are. And I love that about you, because you talked about two of the things that I confront a lot, and you talked about them right at the beginning. You have to know your purpose. You have to get really clear on your goals, because it's so easy to put all that time into something and end up in a different place than where you thought you were going. Understanding our purpose, understanding who we really are, and what we're willing to go to the mat for, and what we aren't. And
Absolutely.
I wonder if before we completely wrap this up, if you could talk about how the culture that we are involved in affects how we perceive our brand, or how that I don't know if I'm saying that right, but how that ecosystem, I guess.
Yes, you're saying it right, because a lot of times we're being told what we should be doing, especially depending on based on our industry. This is what
Right.
you should be looking at. This is how you should look. This is how you should
Mhm.
be perceived. And that's where I say embrace who you are as that misfit who wants to break away from what others are doing. You have to first understand who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can do that, you can bring that to the table. You can bring that on video. You can bring that confidently. And that's where I had to learn too, is I need to be confident in being that person who defied, who asked questions, who said no when other people were saying yes. I
Yeah.
had to be confident in that and know that I'm not just saying no to say no or to be different. I'm saying no because I've experienced a couple of other things and I've seen other
Mm-hmm.
people go through other things. So there's so many different layers that it can't be just one answer. So when people
Mm-hmm.
even ask me, should I be on WordPress or Squarespace? It's not a one or the
Yeah,
other. It's
right.
what's your purpose? Like what
Right.
ultimately do you need? And with that, if we can embrace who we are, we can actually start to tell people, well, you know what? I don't like to be on Instagram because I'm just not, that's just
Mm-hmm.
not where I need to be. That's not my
Mm-hmm.
feel. That's not my fit.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that confidently without feeling ashamed, because there will be people who will shame you and say, well,
Oh, absolutely.
you have to be on all the platforms. I'm like, well, I'm not a TikTok person and I know that. So why? And it's not me not wanting to get out of a comfort zone. It's me knowing who I am,
Yeah.
what I do. And right now in this moment, TikTok is not at the top of the list that I need to now conquer.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, where do you know you need to be? Have you, and I'm not saying you don't dip your toes and test things out. We've
Sure.
already said that. Yes, we're going to test things out, but it has to be according to, first, I have a goal of what I need. I know who I
Mm-hmm.
am. And then I know what my purpose is. So based on those top three things, now I can start testing out and then test out slowly, fast, however I need to do, especially as solopreneurs. You don't have the
Mm-hmm.
bandwidth all the time to be
Right.
everywhere. So
Right.
start to plan, and then through that planning, you can confidently be where you need to be at the proper time.
And you have just so many things that you have said just really resonate with me. I'm just so glad that we had you on today, Charlene. And one last thing: if we have people watching who would really love to have you do a fully branded and optimized website, how would they get in touch with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is through my website. They can head on over to brooklyncustomdesigns.com/about, or you can go to the contact page, or better yet, you can even connect with me on LinkedIn and DM me
Oh,
there.
yeah, so folks, let's all connect with Charlene on LinkedIn, and that means you are going to go to her profile. We're going to go through this. You're going to go to her profile, and you are going to connect. And in that little box that comes up that says you can add a note, you're going to say, Charlene, you are amazing on the Digital Edge Summit. Or Marketing Edge Summit? Could I please connect with you on LinkedIn? So everybody, that's what we're going to do. Charlene's not going to have time to even keep up with all the people who are asking to connect with her. And Charlene, I am absolutely so happy to get to know you. We haven't actually had the opportunity to talk in the past. So, I've followed your work, and I love what you do. And over the next few months, I'm going to be doing some live interviews, and I would absolutely love it if you would come back and talk again.
It would be my pleasure, of course.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Charlene. Anybody have any last minute questions? Okay. So,
They
so
hear my mouth all the time.
you answered every question, Charlene. So thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
I really appreciate it, and we'll be in touch soon.
Definitely. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.